Okay, so now yesterday we have seen, right, when we go through the inheritance, we have seen that we have a class, we have some implementation of the class, we have some variables and functions. The functions are nothing but implementation, which we have seen yesterday, and we can inherit that same parent to number of childs. Like we have inherited to Ford car, we have inherited to BMW car, we have inherited to special car. And if you don't like any of the functionalities that are present in the base class, means some of the functionalities you don't you wanted to get updated, then you can override the base class implementation with the child class implementation. So that is what we have done for the special car. Means we don't want 4 types, we want 6 types, but all other functionalities we need it. We need in same engine, body and interior, but tires we want it little different than the one that we have to have in the car, in the special car. So what we did was we just changed the implementation by using overriding. So when I say overriding, we have the same name, same pattern of the function, same definition of the function in the base class and in the parent class and in the child class. But the implementation, whatever the implementation, you can write new logics in the here, so that you can do the polymorphism of the objects. So that's what we have learned here. So whenever we are doing inheritance, we have all the things implemented, means we have some logic that we have written, right? So here it's a very simple logic. In a banking application, you might doing a create account for create account logic or whatever it is. Here it's a very simple plain Java object logic. But if you go to the interfaces, what happens is in the interfaces will not have any variables, etc. We only have definitions of the functions. Means like if you want to create a car interface now, so if you see car here, we have all methods, right? In all methods and implementations, but in the interfaces, we only have definitions. Means you will have like this semicolon, 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 and semicolon. If you see here, I copied 4 methods from the car class to a car interface. The difference between the car class and the car interface is in the car class, we have the function and then the implementation. So the implementation bracket to bracket, we have implementation, means something logic we have written. So we have the definition of the next function, we have the implementation. We have the definition of the next function, we have the implementation. So, but if you see the interfaces, right, we don't have any definitions. We have only, we don't have any implementations. We have only definitions. Why we have only definitions and not the implementations is because if you are designing a house, you are telling that okay, you will have a kitchen, you will have these 4 pieces, but how you have to arrange, that is your own wish. I mean, you can change, I mean, like you can customize whatever way you wanted to have. So means you are not telling any implementation of it, you are not telling where your stove should be or whatever it is. So what you're telling is okay, these 4 are the main ingredients, that main things that you need for a house, but whatever way that you wanted to implement for your model, you can implement, you can customize it to any way. But if you want to say that it as a house, you need to have a kitchen, you need to have a bathroom, you need to have a bedroom, etc., etc., correct? So you are only defining something as a car or whatever it is, but how the implementation will be taken care is done by the one that is calling the interface. Means if you want to say now, if you want to now say, I say new another class which is called same car class. In say now it again say BMW car. So when I say interface, I have today implements keyword. So instead of extends, we have to use implements keyword if it's an interface. So implements, what is that? We have car interface. So just take the car interface and then you have to call here car interface. So when I started implementing, automatically I got an error saying that you have to implement all the methods that are present here. When I add unimplemented methods, if you see here, all the methods that I've here, whatever is there here in the car interface has been automatically implemented here. Means you have got the logic, all the logic here, correct? So means it is telling something to do, means it is asking you have to write some code. But by default, Java is telling that whenever you implement an interface, then whatever the methods that are not implemented here has to be implemented here. So the facility why they have given in this object oriented programming is, you are telling some person a design, but you're not telling, okay, these are the four pieces that has to be present in this design, but how you wanted to arrange those things, it's your wish. You can arrange it anywhere, like anywhere, whatever way that you wanted to arrange, you can arrange. For example, if you go to a airline industry, right, you can book tickets with expedia.com. You can book with this is just an example. You can book with expedia.com. You can book with any tours.com, or with delta.com, and a lot of things, right? A same Delta flight you can book from Delta website, you can book with Expedia website, you can book with low price website, or whatever website. So we can have different websites. But what they are giving is, they are only telling, okay, we are giving only some data, but however you wanted to implement the UI, I don't really care. What I'll give you is, I'll give you only data. That's why we use web services and all those things. So they are only giving web UI, but the way that we book in Delta is different. The way that we book in Expedia is different, because the UI pages are different, right? The pages are different. But if you book from Delta or Expedia or from any other source, you are booking the same flight, same reservation, everything is same, but the interfaces are different. But what is common, the data is coming and putting it. Data is telling us this is the data that you wanted to pass, or this is the data that you wanted to send. But in the similar fashion here also, what you are telling is, guys, this is the design that I can give you. Whatever way that you wanted to implement, you can implement it. So and then you can show it. But this is what has to be present in your website. So that's what it is telling. It is what that is, this is what it has to be present for this your function. So that's why we use interfaces. A class, a class, that is where we are doing inheritance using a class, is telling that, guys, I have done some implementation. You can go and extend that common functionality, and you can add anything, or you can change whatever I have. Some of the features, if you want to change, you can change it. But if you go to an interface, the interface says that I am not doing any implementation. I don't want to do any implementation. I'll just give the definitions of the functions. You want to implement whatever way you want, you can implement. Means I'm just giving you a prototype, which is like a basic prototype, and then it will only tell you what you want. It will not even tell how to do that. Okay. So whereas in the car inheritance, it is telling what to do also. But in interface, it will not tell what to do. It will just tell, okay, this is a definition, this is just a design, and whatever way that you wanted to implement, you can implement whenever you are calling it. So you can call it and you can implement in whatever way you want. So that's a primary difference between an interface and a car. Interface inheritance, interface inheriting means interface, it has nothing. It's just a definition, and then whenever you are implementing it, you are implementing all the methods. You are telling that, so all the methods should be implemented the same way. For in the even in the car, some of the things are implemented, and then and rest of the implementation is left over to the BMW car, because this is an inheritance, which some most of the pieces, base functionality, common functionality is already implemented, and rest you are giving to the other things. This is one facility. The other facility is, guys, I don't want to implement anything. I'll tell you design, and then you have to implement whatever you want. That is something called interfaces. Okay. So again, an interface will have only definition. So you'll have only definition. You don't have, you don't have any implementation. No implementation. Okay, you don't have any implementation. Any class that implements the interface has to implement all the methods. So for example, if you have seen here, so whatever the functions that we have, whatever the functions that we called here, everything is implemented, means everything is overridden. So this is only a basic rule setter. All other implementation will be present in the class that implements it. Okay, these are some of the basic rules that whenever you're doing interfaces, you have to do all these things. Okay, the keyword that we use is, so implements. Okay, all the functions in the interface are overridden, because if you see, there is no implementation at all. So all the functions that whatever you're calling here is implemented here. So that's why if you see here, all the functions are overridden. So if you see car, right, so there are two functions. If you want to override, you have given the same structure and then you have overridden in the special car. But if you create an interface with all, we have created only the structure, and with the same structure, whenever you're implementing, you took all the functions and you implemented it. So that's why, so you can actually, you have to do that. And one more thing, one more important thing, I'm creating a main class with a main method where we can call interfaces. So you cannot create an object to the interface. So you cannot create an object to the interface, because I cannot say car interface C1 is equal to new car interface. This is not possible at all. Why this is not possible at all? Because if you see here, there is no implementation at all. There is no logic at all. How can you, if you create an object also, when I say c1 dot get types, what I should do? There's nothing. There is nothing here. No implementation. So because there is no implementation, you cannot create any object to a car interface. Means, so you cannot create an object for any car. So you have to just, it is telling you cannot instantiate the car. So if you want to create an object to the interface, you have to say new BMW car, because where the implementation happened, the implementation happened in the BMW car. So you can say new BMW car, then it will take the, then you can create an object like this. So an interface cannot be instantiated on its own. It can be instantiated by the class that that implements it. Okay, so these are basic rules of an interface. Okay, so when you go to the inheritance, a class is created. In inheritance, a class is created, and you will have some variables and you will have some methods. All the methods are implemented and some logic is written. And like, say, if you want to create a banking system, and you have created something like account update, account, etc., etc. So now all the functions that you have written, common functionalities that you have written for the bank account creation, If tomorrow it's Bank of America or Chase Bank will implement all the things, and they'll only reuse this functionality. Whatever the functionality that you have written, they'll reuse that functionality. Okay, that but how does they can do, they can extend the bank account for any bank, and then they can say, okay, I'm just extending it and then I'm just using it. So all the basic functionalities are already written by someone. I don't need to write. If I have any specific thing, I can write. So that whenever you're doing like that, then it is called inheritance. So if for the same banking system you are telling that you need an account, you're telling only definitions, like you need an account, you can update an account, you can do something in the account, and you are not implementing anything, and you're telling Bank of America to implement or Chase to implement whatever the functionality they want, or depending on how they want, so then that's called an interface. So it's a very peculiar, very it looks similar, but there is a very big difference between interfaces and inheritance. Why they have given interfaces and inheritance is because it is giving the developer a flexibility, either to implement some pieces from his side and give the rest of the functionality to others, or it is also giving a facility to developer to tell, okay, this is the design, and if someone third party wants to use it, you can create whatever you wanted to create it. So this is all some facilities in object oriented programming. There is a third type which is called abstract class, which is between interface and inheritance. So if you say abstract class, let me create a new class. So same car class. So I'm creating here it is called abstract. I'm using a word called abstract. Okay. So I'm using a word called abstract class. Okay. Public abstract class, car class. Okay. So now the car is fully implemented class. So that is inheritance. The interface is nothing. Nothing is implemented, and we have to implement whenever we call. So this is nothing and this is fully implemented. The abstract is half and half, means partially implemented, partially unimplemented. And partially, and rest is not implemented. So it is half and half. Okay. So why this is like, if you see some of the approval systems, right? Like there are three manager approval systems. I'm giving a small example. It might not be directly related to that. For an example, for you to understand. Okay. So you do first level approval, there is second level approval, and there is a third level approval. You have to do whatever piece that you wanted to do. Rest of the piece you don't know what you have to do. You have to send it to the manager to approve it, and or you have to tell some other person to implement that stuff, or if he doesn't know, he has to tell some other person to do that stuff. So if he knows some implementation, what he has to do, in some implementation he knows, and rest he wants to leave it to the person who is calling it. So this pattern is called abstract class, and the methods that are unimplemented are abstract methods. So let's go to the car class. Let's take everything. Okay, all the patterns. I'm just taking the whole thing and I'm copy pasting here. Okay. This is an abstract class. The simple change that I'm trying to do is, if you see here, these methods, couple of methods, some methods are implemented, some methods I'm only giving definition. See here, so 50 some of the methods are implemented, and some of the methods are not implemented. Okay, the not implemented methods, if you see, keyword abstract is used. Okay, so the same thing, if I create now, see here, now in the car class we have 8 methods, 6 are implemented and 2 are not implemented, and whatever the rest of the 2, when I extended the class, it is telling that, guys, you have not implemented 2 of the methods, and because he doesn't know how to implement it, and the rest of the things has to be implemented here. So whenever you have half pieces implemented and then half which is not implemented, and the rest, if you want to leave it to the class that it is extending it or inheriting it, then that is called abstraction or layering out. So here you are layering out half piece, you know that how to implement it, and half piece you don't know how to implement it, which is called abstract methods. And those abstract methods, you are just giving it to other things to just implement it, so that you are just telling the other person, okay, these things has not been implemented and you have to go and implement it. So this is nothing but abstraction. So in the abstraction, the same rules. You cannot create an instance of an abstract class. Like in the same way, you cannot create instance like be is car class equal to new car class. You cannot create it because half of the things are implemented and half of the things are not implemented. So whenever there is something not implemented, for that you cannot create a object. If you want to create an object, you have to say car class c1, like you have to write like this. Same thing, car class c1 is equal to new BMW car, semicolon. So you can only instantiate an object like this. You cannot instantiate object like car class c1 is equal to new car class, because when I say car class c1, half of the methods are not implemented and it doesn't know how to do that implementation, or the Java doesn't understand what is not implemented. So that you cannot create with its own reference, you have to only create with the child reference. So that's how you can use abstract classes. So if you are doing an inheritance, if you're doing an inheritance, so in inheritance there are 3 types. one is using extends keyword. Extends keyword is like just inheriting it. So in the parent class, implementation is done, and child, you can extend the implementation. Means you can extend the implementation and add the implementation. Means if you have 4 functions and then 2 functions in the child class, means 4 functions in the parent and two functions in the child class has totally 6 functions. When it comes to interface, nothing is implemented. Means in interface doesn't have anything. So if you have four functions, there is only definitions. So everything should be implemented, whoever is implementing it. So the class that is implementing it. Okay. So whereas an abstract class, like say 3 methods are implemented and then 2 are given definitions. So but the 2 that is given definitions has to be implemented by the extending class. So this is half and half. Some pieces are implemented and some pieces are not implemented. A class that is inherited by this one is fully implemented. An abstract class is some implemented and some not implemented. An interface is fully not implemented and you have to implement by the ones that are calling. So why we are doing it is some of them is reusability, some of them giving the flexibility, some of them we are giving the portability, something like you're giving more abstraction means layering out, so that some pieces, whoever who knows, he can implement it, and some other pieces who doesn't know, the other pieces can be implemented, the person who is taking it. So I know these are little confusing things, but you have to practice a lot to understand the object oriented concepts. We might not be using most of it, but this is a good thing if you start understanding the object oriented concepts. Any questions, Raja?
No, okay, but
Kavita?
No, I'm good.
Okay, guys, just practice it. I'll give you an assignment on inheritance, not in all other things, but just I'll send you a mail. So you have to practice a lot. Okay, so it will take some time. Okay, so if you want to stop any class to inherit, okay, if you don't want this class to be inherited at all, then you can say final. If I say final here, right, then this class will not be inherited at all. Means now if you see, automatically this will get an error. So it is saying that you are trying to inherit some class, but this class has final. Means that class cannot be inherited. Means you are stopping the inheritance. So if you want to stop inheritance, then you can give a keyword called final at a class level. If you give a final keyword at a class level, then inheritance, that class cannot be inherited. Okay, so this class cannot be inherited, so that is final keyword at a class level. Means if you give at a class level final keyword, so that means that class cannot be inherited. Final keyword at a class level, so that thing you cannot inherit. Okay, so if you are giving a keyword final in a function level, okay, you are giving a final here, automatically if you go to the special car, you are getting not set types, right? Let me go and put set types here. So not here, for the set types, where it is set types here. So if I put final here, so automatically if I go to special car, I'm getting an error here, because whenever if I give a final in for a method, so that method cannot be overridden. Means you cannot change the functionality of that method if you give final keyword. So means when you if you give a final keyword at a method level, if you give final keyword, then you cannot override. you cannot override that method, means that is final, means that method that you have done, the implementation is final. You cannot, you cannot change that implementation at all. Means some of the implementation that you have done, that implementation should not be changed by anyone else, or it should not be overridden. So those things are can be set as final, and that cannot be overridden at all. So method level, if you give final keyword, then you cannot override. So if you give final to a variable, if you give a final here, then that is considered as constant. So if you see most of the things, you will see constants, right? Constants means this value types is ever 4 only. You cannot change, you cannot update that value. That's why you're seeing here an error. So when I say final, and if you have given into the memory location 4, you cannot update that to 6 or 7 or 8. That's constant. That's 6 or 7. Like pi value is 3.1.414, right? 3.141 or whatever. So that if you don't want to change that number by any other person, you don't want to change that number, you can give final, means you are giving a permission saying that you cannot override this, you cannot change this number. So that is a constant. So that if you give a final to a variable, that's a constant. If you give a final to a method, that's you cannot override that method. If you give a final to a class, that cannot be inherited. So you have to use a keyword called final. Final means at a class level you cannot inherit, at a method level you cannot override, means you cannot change the implementation. At a variable level you cannot change the value of the variable, means you cannot change 4 to 6 or 6 to 4, whatever it is, you cannot change that. So so please be careful. If you want to stop inheritance, use final at a class level. If you want to stop overriding, you can just do final here. If you want to make a constant in Java, use final here. So that final keyword is very useful keyword if you want to stop anything like this. Okay. Any questions, Pragna?
No questions.
Okay. And guys, go through the recordings again and again until you understand. Go through the examples, go through the samples. It will take some time to understand, but once you understand, it is the easiest programming language I've ever seen. So, but you have to understand. You have to, it'll take some time. You have to visualize the things. Okay. The more practice, the more perfection you will get. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So we'll go to the next topic, which is called exception handling. How to do an exception handling. Okay. So now we are trying to do an exception handling. So let's take for a small example, we are trying to add two numbers, okay? So we are creating a small function. So I'm taking two strings instead of ints. I'm adding two. I'm getting two strings. First of all, I'm trying to convert that strings into integers, and I'm trying to add the value. I'm getting the string value. From the string value, I'm converting into an integer, and once I convert to an integer, I'm trying to add the number. So that's what I'm doing here, logic. Okay. So I'm trying to add two numbers, but I'm getting the inputs as strings. Means whenever you're inputting as a string one, or string two. String can be anything, right? Set of characters. It can be numerics. It can be anything. So string is set of characters. So it doesn't have any limit. So integer is only numeric values. So I'm just getting set of characters. From that, I'm trying to convert into numerics, and then I'm trying to add. So that's what I'm doing. So, but there is a possibility of an exception. How we will see it? Okay. So int uh, okay. So now we have created a function. What does this function do? It will take two strings, convert to integers, add them, okay, and then return the output, return the sum. Okay, so that's what it will do, return the sum. So but is there a possibility of an exception here? If I pass string as 1 comma 2, I can add the numbers. If I pass string a comma b, string a is a variable, right? A is strings str1. I can just change it str1 and string str2. So I can pass two strings str1 and str2. So str1 here and here str2. Okay. So in the str1, in the place of str1 and str2, if I pass 1 and 2, I can just pass 1 and I can convert to integer. I can convert to 2 to integer. 1 plus 2 is 3. You can send it. If I place a comma for the str1, if I pass a, and str2 if I pass b, right? If I try to convert a into an integer, it's not an integer. It will throw an exception. So there is a possibility of an exception here, because you cannot convert a character into a numeric value because you are sending a here. So in those cases, you might try to do an exception handling, because there is a possibility of an exception. Because if a user, right, in the pin pad, you have ABCD and you have 9425 numbers in a general keyboard. You have all the characters. You have numeric characters. You have the alphabets, everything. So instead of a user by mistake typing 1 2 3 4, he typed a or capital B or C, and he tried to enter. Your application should not crash, it should try to handle the exception. So by mistake there is a possibility of user, instead of sending 1 2, they can send it to 9 4 or whatever it is, right? So there is a possibility of an exception here. The exception is, so if you pass a number, then it will add. If you pass a string, it will not add. Okay, so that there is an exception that will happen there, correct? So how can we handle this exception? I'm creating a main method here only. So creating an instance. So e1 is equal to new exception handle. So, and then if I say e1 dot add, so I'm just passing 1 in the form of string, and I'm passing 2 in the form of string, and I'm doing a semicolon. And if I go and run this program, right click and run as Java application and click on OK button. So it did not do anything because there is no sysout. Let me go and do sysout. So again I'll go and run the program. So now it is giving me 3. First, suppose instead of that I'm doing A here, if I just put A here and then run the program, click on OK, it is throwing an exception. It is giving, see here, it is throwing an exception. It is saying it is not a number format exception, means it is not a number. So you're trying to input an A and you're trying to convert it, it's not a number, it's giving an exception. But if you give 1, right, it is not giving an exception. If you just run, it is not giving an exception. So here you have to now handle this exception, or you have to do a catch this exception and say that this is not the number that you're giving is not correct, not a number, please go and correct it. So you have to tell the user that, okay, so there is a thing that you are trying to do, but that's not correct. So you have to go and correct yourselves, right? You'll see a lot of times your warning messages on your applications. So you invalid password, or your whatever your entry is correct or wrong. So you see a lot of messages, right? So you have to tell the user a message. You should not give Java exception like this. You cannot give like a person like this, right? You cannot go and run and say, okay, there is an exception, number format exception. So you cannot go and run and say, okay, there is a number format exception like this. The user will never understand what's going on here, because you're giving a lot of Java jargon, right? So which is not understandable. So if you want to give any user some proper input, then you can have exception handling, that is using a try catch block. So you can put all the things that you wanted to give in a try block, and you can catch an exception using a catch block. Okay, and you can say here the number sysout and control space, say that, okay, the number, please enter correct numbers, please enter proper numeric values. So you're telling that please enter proper numeric values, and you are saying return null. That's okay, I mean it will just return null. So now what you have given, I can say return 0, okay, just leave it like that. So but what you have done now is, so if there is an exception, now if you go and run, right, if you click on OK, you are telling an user please enter proper numeric values, means you are telling that, okay guys, you have done something wrong, and then that you have to correct by using this one. So how are you trying to do an exception handling? There is a possibility an exception in some of the lines. Wherever the possibility of an exception that is present in some of the lines, that lines you have added into a try block. And the way that you handle this, okay, if you want to handle that exception, then whatever the way that you have to handle it, you have added into the catch block. So whenever you add to the, handle that using a catch block, then the exception is already handled, and you can get a proper error message. So that's how you can do it in Java exception handling. Okay, so whatever you wanted to give an error, so the lines that throws an error, put it in try block. So the solution you have to give in catch block. Okay, so but whenever you catch something, right, it will just catch the exception and it will continue. Means if you say invalid password, username and password, and if you still, it will go to login, right, it'll go to the login page, that's not correct, right? You have to actually stop the program. If you want to stop the program, then you can also say throw exception. When you say throw exception, right, it will just throw and stop the program. Okay, so if you want to stop the program whenever there is an exception and not continue, so if you want to stop the program, instead of continuing it, you can use throw. So for example, right, if I say here a comma 2 and even dot add 1 comma 2, and let's say I don't have a throw block, okay, and I'm saying here return 0. So anyway, it's not returning 0. Okay, that's fine. So now if you see here, I have a2 and 1 comma 2. So now if I just run this program, so it'll go and run. It'll throw the exception and it'll not run the second line. It is telling that please enter the proper numeric values, and it is stopping the program. So now if I just go and change it to return 0, okay, the previous one, and I'm not doing a throw, okay. So what happens now is, if I just do click on OK button, even though there is an exception on the first line, it still continue to the second line. It's added the second line, 1 comma 2, same function is called, and it has given the value. And for the first one, it has given me the please enter the proper numeric values. And for the second one, it has given me that one. So if you why it has give it continue to this line and call the function again, because there is no throw statement. There is no way, whenever the exception is happening, we are not stopping the program, we are still continuing the program. If you want to stop the program in Java whenever there is an exception that happens, like if you're logging to an application and it is not logging in, then there's no point in continuing to the application, right, or doing any automation or anything like that. If you want to stop something in from continuing, then you can use a statement called throw exception. Throw will do a stopping of the program. So a try, in the try block, you have to add all the values that you think of that there will be an error. In the catch block, you have to give the solution. If you want to stop the program, use throw. If you don't want to stop the program, don't use throw. So that's how you can use the exception handling in Java. Use try, catch, and throw. Okay. So the try block, all the things that you wanted to put, catch whatever you wanted to put, throw if you want to stop the program. Any questions, guys? Raja?
No, I'm okay, brother.
Okay, guys. I have only one thing that is pending in Java. Tomorrow I'll teach the collections, and then from there, day after tomorrow, we'll go to the Selenium classes. It'll be quick, like another four couple of sessions. Java is done mostly. Selenium is only functions of this thing. So we have some things that we have to cover also, but we'll see how. But today's class, I'm stopping it here. If you have any questions, I can answer. Otherwise, I'll stop the class.
Thank you, Baba.
Okay, cool, guys.